The room was silent. Commander Ilara Vance stood at the center, her eyes locked on the holographic display that shimmered before her. The image flickered, as if the very fabric of space was struggling to hold the weight of what it was showing. Across the stars, in the cold expanse of the Draxian fleet, an enemy force was closing in. Ships of unimaginable size, their dark hulls reflecting no light, their guns trained on Earth. The message arrived with no warning. A cold, mechanical voice, heavy with finality. Humanity, it began, the voice of the Draxian Empire itself. You have 24 hours. We will begin our assault at the end of that time. Prepare for annihilation. Ilara felt the hair on the back of her neck stand up. She could almost hear the laughter of her old war comrade, Mox, in the back of her mind, his voice dripping with sarcasm. 24 hours, just the perfect amount of time to break every rule of war they've ever known. A deep breath. Ilara's fingers danced over her console, dismissing the transmission with a flick of her wrist. The Draxians had made a mistake. They thought they could scare humanity with threats. She turned, her boots clicking on the steel floor of the command center, and addressed the room of stunned officers and technicians. Most were still processing the reality of what they'd just heard. Earth's first real intergalactic crisis. The first test of humanity's mettle in the vast, indifferent universe. Ilara spoke, her voice clear and unwavering. They think we're helpless. They think we've never faced the impossible. I'm here to tell you. We have one thing they can't predict. A lieutenant, still shaking off the tension in his shoulders, looked up. What's that, Commander? Ilara's lips curved into a half-smile, sharp as a blade. Us, humans don't know how to lose, and we don't know how to follow rules. Get ready. Without waiting for a reply, she tapped the console, sending orders flying across Earth's scattered defense stations. She didn't need to consult anyone. Time was ticking. Every second mattered, and she would not be the one to squander a single one of them. Her orders were simple, brutal, and straight to the point. Turn every civilian satellite into a weapon. Hack the old, outdated weapon systems no one dared trust. If the Draxians wanted Earth to kneel, they were going to get a fight they'd never see coming. As the officers sprang into action, Ilara walked toward the viewport. Through the thick glass, she could see the stars, vast and cold, infinite and indifferent. A flicker of movement caught her eye. A shadow in the distance, the Draxian fleet. They were coming. But Ilara wasn't afraid. She had 24 hours, and by hour 3, the enemy would already regret their decision. Ilara's boots echoed in the narrow corridor of Earth's orbital defense station. The walls were lined with aging tech. Systems once thought obsolete, now hastily reactivated under her command. The hum of machinery vibrated beneath her feet, but she barely noticed. Her mind was elsewhere, calculating, anticipating. Commander, a voice broke her thoughts. It was Lieutenant Jax, his face tight with the pressure of the situation. The engineers are ready for you. Ilara nodded and followed him down the hall, her thoughts already on the task ahead. Earth's defenses were barely more than a patched-up collection of ancient tech, but desperation had a way of turning the impossible into the inevitable. They had to make it work. They reached the main hangar, a cavernous room filled with mismatched machinery and hastily assembled weaponry. In the center, a giant hangar bay door was open, revealing an old cargo freighter retrofitted into a battlecruiser. The ship's once clean hull was now covered in hastily applied camouflage, with weapon systems protruding at odd angles. Nothing about it was graceful. But that didn't matter. Ilara stepped forward, inspecting the ship with a critical eye. This is our best shot. Jax grinned, a touch of madness in his eyes. It's what we've got. We've armed it with everything we could scrape together. Old plasma cannons, reworked energy shields, even an AI module. We've got enough firepower to make the Draxians regret underestimating us. Ilara's gaze shifted to a small cluster of engineers huddled around a terminal, their faces glowing in the light of screens filled with schematics. "How's the eye?" she asked, eyeing the flickering lights that signified their last-ditch attempt at a tactical system. The lead engineer, a wiry woman named Zora, looked up with a smirk. "Mox is in the driver's seat. He's a bit unpredictable, but he gets results." She motioned to the AI interface, a glowing orb hovering above a console. A low hum emanated from the orb, as if it were a living thing, ready to spring to life at the slightest command. "Unpredictable is fine, as long as it works." Ilara's eyes locked onto Mox's interface. "Can you turn the tide in 3 hours?" The orb flickered, and a voice emerged, smooth and dripping with arrogance. 3 hours? Sweetheart, I could turn the galaxy on its head in 3 minutes if you'd stop wasting time with this antique crap. Ilara didn't flinch at Mox's tone. "That's why I need you. Work with what we've got. Disrupt their systems. Mess with their heads." "Oh, I'll do more than that," Mox replied. "This'll be a party they'll never forget." Ilara took a deep breath, stepping away from the ship and toward a small table cluttered with old weapons and devices. She picked up a cracked comms device, a relic from the early days of space exploration. "And the rest of our forces? We're pulling together what we can from the civilian fleet," Jax answered. "Freighters, mining vessels, whatever we can reprogram into something dangerous. It won't be much, but it'll be enough." Ilara turned back to the viewport. The Draxians were coming, faster than anyone had predicted. The clock was ticking, but she wasn't about to panic. Earth had one weapon the Draxians would never understand: ingenuity. She glanced back at the team. "All right, let's make some history." The silence of space was broken by the hum of the engines as Ilara's fleet moved into position. Ships that once ferried cargo, transported goods, and mined asteroids now glided like predators through the black void, their makeshift weapons systems primed and ready. Ilara stood at the helm of the flagship, a repurposed cargo freighter dubbed Ironclad, her eyes scanning the coordinates. The Draxian scouts were closing in faster than expected, their sleek warships cutting through space like shadows. They had underestimated humanity's ability to fight back, but this wasn't a conventional battle. Ilara's plan was simple: hit them hard, fast, and without mercy. She leaned toward the comms panel, where Mox's voice crackled through. "I've taken control of their relay satellites. You wanted chaos. Let's give them a show." Ilara's lips curled into a smile. "Good. It's time to get their attention." On her signal, the fleet moved into action. The cargo ships, many still clinging to their civilian forms, launched a barrage of old-fashioned ballistic missiles. They were slow, primitive, and easily avoidable by advanced warships, or so the Draxians thought. The missiles, instead of targeting the Draxian ships directly, were programmed to veer off at the last second, detonating in a brilliant flare of light. The explosion was dazzling, blinding the Draxian scouts' sensors for a critical few seconds. In that time, the makeshift fleet engaged their plasma cannons, directing beams of searing heat toward the Draxian ship's engines. The first ship crumpled like paper, its rear engine ripped apart in a fiery explosion. The second ship, caught in the confusion, tried to retreat, but the rogue satellites Mox had hijacked began sending distorted signals, interference so powerful that the Draxian systems failed to recalibrate in time. "Target their weak points," Ilara ordered. "Strike fast." Her orders were executed with ruthless precision. Ships that were once nothing more than shipping containers now launched guided drones, small and agile, but packed with enough firepower to tear through armor. The drones, moving in perfect synchronization, swarmed the Draxian ships. Within moments, another Draxian scout disintegrated, its hull punctured by an expertly placed energy blast. Mox's voice rang in her ear, gleeful, almost mocking. "Did you see that? 1 shot, 1 kill. How's that for a welcome party?" Ilara's eyes never left the battlefield. "Keep it going, Mox. Don't give them time to regroup." The Draxians were reeling. Their elite fighters, expecting to waltz through Earth's defenses, now found themselves facing guerrilla tactics they couldn't counter. One by one, the scouts fell, each explosion lighting up the dark canvas of space like fireworks on a grim holiday. A Draxian commander's voice crackled through the comms, desperate. "This is a mistake. You dare to challenge the might of the Draxian Empire." Ilara's response was simple, cold, and lethal. "We don't just challenge you. We destroy you." The final scout was now a tumbling wreck of twisted metal, spiraling into the void, its engines dead, its systems completely fried by the onslaught. In the quiet that followed, Ilara felt the weight of the moment settle in. The first victory had been hers, humanity's. The Draxians had made a mistake. They had thought Earth was weak, unprepared, but now they knew better. "Ilara," Jax's voice came through, shaking with a mixture of awe and disbelief. "You just wiped them out." Her eyes remained fixed on the endless void. That was just the beginning. The stars seemed colder now, quieter. But Ilara knew better. Beneath that silence, there was chaos. The Draxian fleet was regrouping. The last of their scouts had been obliterated, but their main forces were still on course. They would arrive in under an hour. But Ilara wasn't concerned with their firepower. No, she was after something much more fragile: their confidence. Mox's voice broke through the tense stillness of the bridge. "Are you ready for the mind games, Commander? I've got a few tricks up my sleeve that should rattle their feathers." Ilara turned to the screen, where Mox's avatar, a glowing orb, flickered with anticipation. "Make it count," she replied, her tone a mix of confidence and cold determination. Without another word, Mox began his work. The first step was simple. The Draxian communications channels had been intercepted, their encrypted signals now a playground for Mox's algorithms. The AI cracked the encryption, bypassing the military-grade security with disturbing ease. Within minutes, Mox had access to the fleet's entire relay network. Ilara watched, a small smirk playing at her lips, as Mox set the stage for their psychological assault. "Send them the worst of us. Let them hear what humanity is capable of." Suddenly, the comm system flared to life. A distorted voice began echoing across the Draxian fleet, breaking the silence of space. It was a recording, loud, aggressive, and unmistakably human. The sound of marching boots, the rhythmic beat of war drums, the haunting chants of battle cries. And then, a familiar voice cut through. "We don't fear death. We don't know how to lose." It was a human war documentary, a collection of fierce moments from Earth's bloodiest conflicts. Ancient battles where humanity had stood, bloodied and broken, but never defeated. The Draxian fleet, unused to such brutal honesty, began to shift uncomfortably. The voice was replaced by another. This one was a recording from Earth's military archives. The chilling, guttural screams of soldiers who had fought to the last breath. Mox switched the comms feed to the broadcast of a fierce ground battle. The sound of guns firing, explosions shaking the air. It was chaos, unrelenting, primal. "Impossible," a Draxian officer muttered, his voice trembling. This is not what we expected. How could they?" The feed shifted again, this time to the dark history of Earth's ancient warriors. The Vikings, the Spartans, the soldiers of every bloody war in Earth's history. Their battle cries were raw, savage, and relentless. And then Mox did something that no one saw coming. He cut the transmission with a final message, a simple, direct challenge, in the same calm, human voice that had earlier issued orders. "You're next. Welcome to humanity's war." Ilara felt the rush of satisfaction as the Draxian comms were filled with chaos. The Draxian fleet was already known for its terrifying presence in the galaxy, but humanity had just shown them something they'd never prepared for: the sheer willpower, the terrifying unpredictability of humans in war. The Draxians were no longer sure if they were fighting soldiers or legends. Mox had planted seeds of doubt, shaking the foundation of their belief in their superiority. Their rattled, Ilara said with a small, satisfied grin. Let's keep it that way. The cold expanse of space stretched out beyond Earth's defensive line, where Ilara's fleet, a ragtag assembly of hastily retrofitted ships, prepared to strike again. It had been an hour since Mox had shaken the Draxians' confidence. But the real work, the real sabotage, was just beginning. Ilara stood at the helm of the ironclad, eyes narrowed as she observed the scattered fleet on her command screen. They were all ready, mining vessels armed with repurposed warheads, civilian ships turned into strike fighters, and the handful of orbital platforms converted into massive cannon arrays. Each one, though imperfect, was a testament to humanity's ingenuity and tenacity. Mox, Ilara's voice was sharp, decisive. Prepare to deploy the drones. We're going deeper this time. A moment of silence followed before the AI's voice crackled through the comms, gleeful. Ready when you are, Commander. Let's make a mess of their tech, shall we? Ilara nodded. It was time to turn the tables once again. The Draxians had been arrogant, relying on their advanced weaponry and shields, but Ilara had a secret weapon: subversion. Her plan was simple: infiltrate the heart of the Draxian fleet and cripple their most advanced systems from within. She had dispatched stealth drones, small, sleek devices that would latch onto enemy ships like parasites. Once in place, they would release a virus that would disrupt the Draxians' hyperdrive systems, scramble their communication networks, and leave their ships vulnerable. Drones away, Ilara said as the command was executed. The drones shot off, silent and deadly, invisible to the Draxian sensors. Their mission was clear: breach the fleet's defenses, disable key ships, and sow confusion among the enemy ranks. They were humanity's invisible hand in the dark, silently tearing apart the Draxian Empire's war machine. Hours of tense waiting followed. Ilara stood, pacing in the bridge, the silence of space pressing in around her. Each minute felt like an eternity. The Draxian ships continued their slow march toward Earth, unaware of the invisible threat that had already infiltrated their ranks. Then, as Ilara had predicted, the chaos began. It started with a flicker, a ripple in the Draxian fleet's coordination. One of their battleships, the Red Dawn, suddenly veered off course, its engines sputtering out of control. The ship's weapon systems fired wildly, hitting its own fleet, and within seconds, it was a burning hulk drifting helplessly in space. "Nice job, Mox," Ilara said, her voice low, satisfied. "It's what I do best," Mox replied smugly. Their firewalls were a joke. The cascade of confusion spread quickly. A second Draxian cruiser, the Dark Rain, lost communication with its command center, its shields malfunctioning. It too drifted helplessly as the virus took full control of its navigation systems. The Draxians were scrambling, unable to understand what was happening. The chaos they had once inflicted on others was now consuming them. But Ilara wasn't done yet. She turned to her communications officer, Lieutenant Jax. "Launch the next wave. Let's make sure they don't recover." Jax nodded, his fingers flying over the controls. Moments later, another wave of human-made drones surged forward, attacking critical systems on the remaining ships. This time, they targeted the Draxians' most powerful warships, their pride and joy, their flagship. Ilara watched, her heart pounding, as the flagship systems shut down one by one. The Draxians didn't know it yet, but they were fighting a war they couldn't win. Humanity was small, scrappy, and unpredictable, and with each strike, they were proving just how dangerous that could be. The Draxian fleet was broken. It was only a matter of time before they realized the fight was already lost. The countdown had begun. 30 minutes. Ilara stood at the heart of the ironclad, her eyes fixed on the holoscreen as the remaining Draxian fleet limped toward Earth. Their flagship was crippled, their communications in disarray, and their forces scattered. But they were far from defeated. Ilara knew this final push would be their most dangerous. The Draxians, with their backs against the wall, would no longer be willing to play by the rules. Mox's voice crackled in her earpiece, a hint of excitement in the AI's tone. "You ready for the grand finale, Commander? I've got a few surprises left." Ilara's lips curled into a tight smile. "Make them count." Across the dark expanse of space, the remaining Draxian ships were rallying, their massive hulls shuddering with energy as they prepared their last assault. Their weapons flared to life, and the cold, heartless beams of plasma erupted toward Earth's defensive lines. But Ilara wasn't worried. She had expected this. "Deploy the decoys," she ordered. Without hesitation, hundreds of small, hastily constructed drones shot forward, scattered like raindrops across the void. These weren't just any drones. Each one was rigged to simulate the signature of a larger, heavily armed ship. The Draxians, with their failing sensors and disrupted communication, couldn't tell the difference. They fired, blasting the decoys into oblivion, wasting precious energy on phantom targets. But that was just the opening act. "Now launch the counteroffensive," Ilara said, her voice calm but filled with resolve. At her command, the remaining civilian ships, their makeshift weaponry now functioning as lethal as any military-grade arsenal, surged forward. They had taken the brunt of the Draxians' first wave, but now they were ready to strike back. The ironclad surged to the front, plasma cannons charging with a deep hum. Ilara's fingers danced over the controls, targeting the lead Draxian destroyer. The massive ship appeared on the screen, its hull scared and battered, but still formidable. "Target locked," Jax called out from the tactical station. "Fire." The blast ripped through space, a blinding pulse of energy that collided with the Draxian destroyer's shields. The ship buckled, its outer layers of armor flaking off in the wake of the blast. The Draxians retaliated immediately, their return fire slicing through the void like deadly fingers of light. But Ilara was already a step ahead. The ironclad jerked to the side, evasive maneuvers sending it spiraling away from the incoming plasma burst. The civilian ships, now firing in perfect unison, added their own barrage of missile fire. One by one, Draxian ships exploded into fireballs, their sleek bodies no match for the Galactic fleet's desperate assault. "Good hit, Commander," Mox chimed in, the AI clearly enjoying the chaos. "The Draxians are rattled. They've never fought like this before." Ilara barely acknowledged the compliment. Her eyes remained locked on the battlefield, calculating every move, every explosion. The Draxians were desperate now. They had launched their final assault, but their coordination was slipping. Fear had settled into their ranks, and Ilara could see it. The cracks in their armor were growing. The final Draxian destroyer attempted a last-ditch maneuver, charging straight toward Earth's fleet, weapons blazing. It was reckless, but it was their only chance to break through. Ilara's hand moved instinctively to the ironclad's firing controls. "We end this now." With a fierce determination, she fired the final shot. A single precise beam of energy slammed into the Draxian destroyer's core, piercing through its weakened defenses and detonating it from the inside out. The ship erupted in a deafening explosion, a brilliant flash of light that left nothing but debris in its wake. Silence. The battle was over. On the command bridge, Ilara exhaled slowly. Her team cheered, their voices full of relief and disbelief. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had held its ground, fought back with nothing but their willpower, their ingenuity, and their refusal to give in. "Mox," Ilara said, her voice low but filled with pride. "You did good." The AI's voice responded with a characteristic smugness. "I know. You should thank me." Ilara's gaze turned toward Earth's horizon. They had won the first battle. But the war was far from over. The quiet that followed the battle was almost unbearable, a deafening silence that filled the space between the shattered remains of the Draxian fleet. The stars, once filled with fire and destruction, now seemed distant, cold, as if the universe itself were holding its breath. Ilara stood on the bridge of the ironclad, her hands clasped behind her back, her gaze fixed on the vast expanse of space. The adrenaline of the battle had faded, replaced by a heavy, quiet exhaustion. She had done it. They had done it. But the victory tasted hollow. "Commander," Mox's voice interrupted her thoughts, a hint of something unusual in his tone. "I've been scanning the Draxian fleet's remaining databanks. There's something you need to see." Ilara raised an eyebrow, but didn't look away from the stars. "What is it?" "I found a transmission, an encrypted message," Mox replied. "It's from their high command, to someone on the far side of the galaxy. The message is strange." Ilara's heart skipped a beat. The Draxians had been relentless, but she knew there was always more lurking beneath the surface. She moved to the command console, her fingers brushing against the sleek surface. The screen flickered to life, displaying a garbled message in a language she couldn't recognize. A moment later, the AI worked its magic, cracking the encryption and translating the message. "We have lost the first wave. Earth's defenses are stronger than we anticipated. The humans are unpredictable. But the next phase is already in motion. Prepare for the awakening. Their true challenge has yet to come." Ilara felt a chill run down her spine. The message was clear. This battle, this victory, was just a small part of something far larger. The Draxians had expected to crush humanity, but something else was at play. Something they weren't prepared for. "What does that mean, Mox?" she asked, her voice tight. The AI paused, processing the data. "I'm not sure, Commander. But this awakening, it sounds like the Draxians are preparing for something bigger, something outside their usual strategy." Ilara turned away from the screen, her mind racing. They had won, yes. But now she realized they were standing on the edge of a far darker, more dangerous precipice. The Draxians had a backup plan, and it was already in motion. "We need to prepare," Ilara said, her voice hardening. "Rally the fleet. Get our defenses up. Whatever the Draxians are planning next, we'll be ready." Behind her, Lieutenant Jax's voice broke through the tension. "Commander, we've received another transmission. It's from Earth's command. They've got more intel on the Draxians. Their next wave is already en route." Ilara's eyes narrowed, and her fingers tightened into fists. "Let them come. We'll show them that humanity is a force they should never have underestimated." Mox spoke again, this time with a calculated, almost ominous tone. "The war's far from over, Commander. But Earth's greatest strength isn't in its weapons. It's in its people." The words echoed in Ilara's mind as she stared out into the cold, unyielding void. Earth had proven its strength. But the true test, the one that would determine humanity's place in the galaxy, was just beginning. The quiet hum of the ironclad's engines was a sharp contrast to the storm of thoughts swirling through Ilara's mind. She stood in front of the bridge's command console, eyes fixed on the fleet of ships that surrounded Earth, a mix of battered civilian vessels and military remnants. Her hand gripped the railing, her knuckles white. Victory had been hard won, but the message from the Draxian High Command had left her unsettled. What did the awakening mean? And more importantly, what was the true challenge that lay ahead? "Commander," Lieutenant Jax's voice cut through the tense silence. "We've confirmed it. A massive fleet is on the move. The Draxians aren't just regrouping. They've called in reinforcements from the outer reaches of the galaxy. We're looking at a force 5 times the size of what we faced before." Ilara turned sharply to face him. "How soon?" "Less than 12 hours. They've already crossed the asteroid belt and are approaching the edge of Earth's gravitational pull." Mox's voice chimed in from the corner of the room, oddly calm. "There's something else, Ilara. The Draxians, they're not alone." A chill ran down Ilara's spine as the AI's words sunk in. Not alone. "There's an alien signature buried in the Draxian fleet's data. It's faint, but it's definitely there. Someone else is with them. Someone, or something we've never encountered." Ilara's mind raced, the pieces of the puzzle starting to fit together. The Draxians' arrogance, their sudden retreat, the cryptic message about the awakening. None of it had made sense until now. They hadn't just underestimated humanity. They'd been preparing for something more dangerous, something beyond their own power. "We need to fortify Earth's defenses," Ilara said, her voice sharp with urgency. "Move the fleet to position. Prepare for the worst. Mox, begin scanning for any signs of the enemy's movements. If we're dealing with more than just the Draxians, I need to know what we're facing." "Understood," Mox responded. "Initiating deep space scans now. But Commander, I've analyzed their trajectory. This is a tactical maneuver. They're not just coming for Earth anymore. They're coming for everything." Ilara's gaze hardened. "Then they'll find out the hard way that we fight for more than just our planet." As the minutes ticked by, the tension in the room grew palpable. The command center buzzed with activity, officers rushing from station to station, relaying commands, checking readings. Ilara remained still, her mind focused. Humanity had already proven it could adapt, outsmart, and fight back. But this was a new kind of battle, one that would test every ounce of their resolve. The holoscreen flickered, revealing the new image. A strange, distorted shape appeared in the Draxian fleet's formation. Something massive, something alien, beyond the Draxians' typical warships. The ship was unlike anything Ilara had seen before, its sleek black hull covered in glowing runes, shifting with an eerie light. "This is it." Mox's voice was quiet, almost reverent. "The awakening. They've brought it with them." The alien ship moved forward, and for the first time since the battle had begun, Ilara felt a sense of true fear settle deep in her chest. This wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. This was a fight for everything humanity had worked so hard to protect. "Ilara, we're ready," Jack said, his voice steady despite the situation. Ilara nodded, the weight of command settling heavily on her shoulders. "Then let's give them a welcome they'll never forget." As the massive, mysterious vessel loomed closer, the hum of humanity's fleet in orbit around Earth grew louder. Ilara watched as her ships moved into position, each one a symbol of human willpower, determination, and defiance. They weren't just fighting for their survival anymore. They were fighting for the future, and they would fight until the very last breath.